My name is Harold Bennett. I'm 60 years old. I used to teach kids about birds and animals at schools. My wife passed away 10 years ago. After she left, my uncle gave me his old farm with a big red barn. The farm sits next to a special forest where rare birds live. Nobody can cut down trees there. It's against the rules. I was away for 2 years helping scientists count eagles in Alaska. When I came home, my family invited me for dinner. My sister stood up with a big smile. She said the farm sold for $500,000. Everyone clapped and cheered. My heart stopped. I yelled, "How dare you do this?" She walked over and slapped my face hard. Then she pushed me toward the door. She whispered mean words. "Get out, you old loser." Nobody helped me. But I didn't cry. I knew something important. The farm had special papers that said nobody could sell it. The next morning, my phone rang and rang. 25 calls in just 30 minutes. Her voice message was shaking. "Please help me, they caught me." I smiled and said back, "Too late, loser." She didn't know what was coming. Want to hear how everything fell apart for her? Should I forgive her or never talk to her again? Tell me what you think, because sometimes one choice changes everything. Let me go back 2 years to explain why I stayed so calm. My family kept bothering me to use the farm to get money from the bank. My sister was the loudest one. She said I was wasting good land. She wanted to build houses and stores there. I said no every single time. The farm was protected because special birds lived in the forest next door, eagles and owls that were almost gone from the world. But she wouldn't stop asking. She had lost lots of money. She tried selling jewelry online, but nobody bought anything. She opened a flower shop that closed after 6 months. She owed money to many people. Mom and Dad gave her some help, but it wasn't enough. One day she visited me and said, "Just sign these papers. The bank will give us money. We're family. We help each other." I saw how desperate she looked, so I decided to trick her. I pretended to say yes. I told her maybe I would think about it. But really, I called my old friend Marcus, who is a lawyer. He looked at all the papers about the farm. Marcus told me the farm could never be sold or used to get bank money, not without permission from the government. "This could be a trap," Marcus warned me over coffee. "If she fakes your signature, we call the police right away." We made a plan together. I would say yes, but never actually sign any real papers. Marcus got everything ready to report her if she did something wrong. My sister got so happy when I pretended to agree. She started calling people who wanted to buy land. She promised them they could make money fast. I wrote down everything she said. I sent copies to Marcus through email. While she was busy planning, I did something smart. I sent new information to the government about the birds on my farm. I took pictures of eagle nests. I counted how many baby birds were born. The government looked at my pictures and made the farm even more protected. Now it was impossible for anyone to touch it. I knew my sister would try something bad while I was in Alaska. Marcus promised to watch carefully. "If she files fake papers," he said, "I'll catch her and tell the police immediately." The farm wasn't just my home. It was my secret weapon. My uncle had signed papers 40 years ago saying the land would always protect birds. Nobody could ever build on it. I left for Alaska knowing her plan would fail. My sister didn't just start bothering me last year. This goes back to when we were kids. We grew up in a small town where everyone knew each other. Our dad ran a store that sold tools and paint. Mom worked at the town hall doing paperwork. They taught us that making money was the most important thing in life. My older sister, Margaret, loved helping Dad at the store. She would count money and talk to customers even when she was just a teenager. My younger brother, Paul, did the same thing. He studied business in school, but I was different. I spent my weekends in the woods looking at birds. I would sit quietly and watch them build nests. I drew pictures of them in my notebook. My parents thought it was silly. "You'll never make money watching BIRDS, Dad said. "Why can't you be like Margaret?" Mom asked. Family dinners were hard. They would talk about sales and customers. When I talked about finding a rare owl, everyone would roll their eyes. "That's nice, Harold," they'd say. Then they'd change the subject. After high school, I went to college to learn about animals and nature. My parents were not happy. They wanted me to study business or accounting. During holidays, Margaret would brag about her job. Paul would talk about his classes. I would stay quiet. Then something wonderful happened 8 years ago. My Uncle Thomas died. He was my mom's brother. His wife had died 2 years before. Uncle Thomas always understood me. When I was little, he took me on walks to see birds. He taught me their names and songs. In his will, Uncle Thomas left me his entire farm. The The farm had a house, a barn, fields, and woods. It was right next to the national forest where protected birds lived. My family was so angry. They wanted to sell everything and split the money between all of us. That land is worth a fortune, Margaret screamed at the lawyer. We could build vacation cabins, Dad added. But Uncle Thomas had been very clear. The farm was only for me. When I visited the farm for the first time as the owner, I cried happy tears. I remembered Uncle Thomas showing me eagle nests when I was 10 years old. He told me stories about protecting nature. While I was cleaning out his office, I found old papers in a drawer. These were documents from 50 years ago. Uncle Thomas had signed agreements with the government. The agreement said the farm would be protected forever. No building, no selling. The land had to stay natural for the birds. The government had given Uncle Thomas special tax breaks for doing this. I read every page carefully. These papers meant nobody could ever develop the land. Eagles, hawks, and rare songbirds nested in the forest. Some of them were almost extinct. I kept this information secret from my family. I knew they would try to fight it somehow. Over the next few years, I did more to protect the farm. I put up signs. I built special boxes for birds to nest in. I took thousands of photos of the birds that lived there. I sent reports to the government wildlife department. They were so happy with my work. Margaret's problems got worse about 3 years ago. She had invested money in a company that made phone apps. The company went bankrupt. She lost everything. Then she tried starting a wedding planning business. That failed too. She borrowed money from banks and couldn't pay it back. People started calling her asking for their money. Mom and Dad helped her pay some of the bills, but they couldn't cover everything. She started calling me every week. Let me use the farm to get a loan, she begged. I'm drowning in debt, Harold. You have to help me. I said no every time. I explained that I needed the farm for my bird research, but she kept pushing harder and harder. At family gatherings, Dad would pull me aside. Your sister is in serious trouble, he'd say. Be reasonable. Mom would cry and say, please think of Margaret, she's your sister. Paul tried to be the peacemaker, but he sided with them. I stood strong because I knew what the protection papers meant. Margaret got more desperate. She started bringing business people to family dinners. These were investors who wanted to buy land. She would hint that she could get them access to prime property near the national forest. I watched her networking and scheming. She had no idea about the legal protections. She thought if she pushed hard enough, I'd give in. One night she showed up at my apartment with a briefcase full of documents. These are just preliminary papers, she said sweetly. You don't have to commit to anything, just look at them. I glanced through the papers. They were loan applications listing my farm as collateral. I handed them back and said firmly, I will never sign these. Her face turned red. You're being selfish, she shouted. You're sitting on a goldmine while I'm losing everything. I tried to explain about Uncle Thomas's wishes and the bird protections. She didn't want to hear it. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard my pictures fell off the wall. That's when I decided to be extra careful. I ordered new equipment for my bird research. I got cameras that could record birds day and night. I got special microphones that could record bird songs from far away. Setting up all this equipment took weeks. I had to climb trees and hide cameras in waterproof boxes. I made sure everything connected to my computer, so I could watch the birds even when I was far away. Dad invited me to a barbecue at their house. While we were eating, he said, Harold, Margaret really needs this. Can't you be flexible? Mom overheard and came over. Just a small loan against the property, she pleaded. It would save her business. Paul watched from across the yard but said nothing. I mentioned the protection papers briefly. Dad waved his hand like it was nothing. Those are old rules, he said. We can work around them. Margaret kept losing more money. Her latest idea was buying an old building downtown and turning it into apartments. But the building had problems and the deal fell through. Now even more people were calling her for money. Banks sent her letters. Collection agencies left messages on her phone. She came to me one more time. We met at a restaurant for lunch. She looked tired and worried. One signature, Harold, she begged. That's all I need. I said no again and reminded her about the legal restrictions on the farm. She threw her napkin on the table and left without eating. I could tell she was planning something behind my back. Before I left for Alaska, I met with Marcus at his office. He did research on the farm's title. He found that some of Margaret's business friends had been asking questions about the property. This is suspicious, Marcus said. He wrote official letters to several banks. The letters explained that the farm could not be used as collateral for any loan. If anyone tried, they would be breaking the law. Marcus also told me to get special insurance. This will protect you if someone tries to claim your property, he explained. I signed the insurance papers that day. We talked about what to do if Margaret actually filed fake documents. I'll monitor the property records online, Marcus promised. If anything unusual shows up, I'll contact the authorities immediately. Right before I flew to Alaska, Margaret tried one last time. It was at Mom's birthday party. Everyone was there eating cake. Margaret pulled me aside and smiled. Just meet my investors, she said. It won't hurt to listen. I politely refused and explained the restrictions again. She rolled her eyes, but I noticed her whispering to Dad afterward. I left town the next day. Marcus gave me access to check property records from my computer. He promised to send me updates every week. Any sign of fraud and I'll take action, he assured me. My work in Alaska was studying how eagles build their nests in different climates. Every day I hiked through mountains taking notes and photos, but I checked my email constantly. Marcus sent regular updates. For the first 6 months, everything was quiet. Then he started noticing odd things. People connected to Margaret were calling the county office asking questions about my farm. I prepared myself. I knew she would try something eventually. The protection papers were my shield. No matter what she did, the law was on my side. 2 days after I got back from Alaska, I drove out to the farm. The drive took about 3 hours from the city. When I arrived, something was wrong. There were small flags stuck in the ground all around the property, orange and yellow flags marking different spots. These were survey flags. Someone had been measuring the land for construction. My hands shook as I took pictures of every single flag with my phone. I photographed the tire tracks from trucks that had driven onto my property. I found business cards stuck in my front door. They were from a construction company. In the car, I immediately called Marcus. I described everything I had seen. This confirms it, Marcus said seriously. She's been working with developers. Marcus didn't waste time. He filed a police report that same afternoon. He attached copies of the farm's protection documents and proof that I owned it. He explained to the police that someone was trying to commit fraud. The police said they would investigate. Marcus also contacted the wildlife department. He told them someone was planning to violate the bird protection agreements. By evening, I got confirmation that official complaints were filed with multiple government agencies. The people who wanted to buy the farm were a couple from out of state. They wanted to flip properties and make quick money. Their lawyer called Marcus after discovering something bad. The contract Margaret had shown them was fake. It didn't have my real signature. The buyers were furious. They had spent money on surveys, inspections, and legal fees. They hired a lawyer and sued Margaret for lying to them. The lawsuit demanded she pay them back for all their expenses plus extra money as punishment. The court papers included emails where Margaret had promised them the deal was legitimate. Margaret's phone started ringing constantly. The buyer's lawyer called. Her creditors called. She left panicked voicemails for Mom and Dad. But they couldn't help her this time. The lawsuit was too serious. The papers were delivered to her office by a court officer. The lawsuit named me as a witness since it was my property. Marcus told me I needed to write a statement explaining the protection papers and Margaret's unauthorized actions. I wrote everything down carefully. Just the facts. No emotions. As word spread, Margaret's business partners started avoiding her. They canceled projects they were working on together. One evening, my phone buzzed. It was Margaret calling. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Her voice was cracking. "Harold, please, they caught me. The police are investigating. I need you to tell them you said yes to the deal." I listened to the message twice. Then I sent her a text message, just 3 words, "Too late, loser." I felt no guilt. She had brought this on herself. Marcus updated me that the police had talked to the survey crew. The workers admitted Margaret had hired them without checking if she actually owned the farm. Government regulators opened an investigation into whether Margaret had broken real estate laws. The lawsuit moved forward quickly. A court date was set. Margaret tried to get the family to help her. She called a family meeting and claimed it was all a misunderstanding. But Paul asked tough questions after reading the basics of the case. Dad tried to fix things privately. He offered the buyers money from his savings if they would drop the lawsuit. They refused. They wanted Margaret to be held accountable in court. Mom worried about what people in town would think. She stopped going to her book club because people were gossiping. Through all of this, I stayed distant. I let Marcus handle everything legal. I gave my statement to support the facts. The protection papers held strong. Nobody could make any claim on my farm. In town, word spread fast. Margaret had a reputation in the local business community. Now people were talking about the fraud case. Clients started pulling out of deals with her. Other business owners avoided her at networking events. Online reviews appeared mentioning the lawsuit. 1 week after the lawsuit was filed, Dad sent me a text. He wanted me to come to their house urgently. When I arrived, everyone was waiting in the living room. Mom was twisting her hands nervously. Paul stood by the window. Margaret looked exhausted with red, puffy eyes from crying. Dad started talking right away. He said the buyer's lawyer was demanding a settlement. "We can fix this if we all work together," Dad said. Mom explained that the news was spreading to all their friends and business contacts. Margaret jumped in and admitted she had pushed too hard. "Just tell them you were okay with the deal," she begged me. I shook my head. I reminded them the protection papers made the whole thing illegal. Paul suggested hiring a mediator to help the family talk things through. I pointed out that wouldn't change the facts of the case. Dad made an offer. He said he'd pay part of the damages from his retirement savings if I withdrew as a witness. "This is about family unity," he insisted. Mom nodded. "The business can't survive this scandal." Margaret promised she would stop working with those investors if I helped her. I listened to all their plans quietly. Marcus had warned me this pressure would come. I called him on speakerphone so everyone could hear. Marcus explained to my family that the lawsuit was progressing according to schedule. "Court has scheduled depositions where everyone gives statements under oath," he said. Marcus recommended that I continue being truthful. "Backing out now would look suspicious," he warned. "The legal process ensures accountability." Dad argued the lawsuit was asking for too much money. Marcus explained that lying about real estate deals carries serious penalties under the law. "This is standard for fraud cases," he said. I agreed with Marcus. I told my family I would not interfere with the case. Margaret got upset. "You're enjoying this," she accused me. Mom tried to calm Margaret down, but the tension in the room was thick. Paul asked if there was any compromise possible. Maybe I could give a softer statement. Marcus advised strongly against that. "Half-truths could make Harold's position worse," he said. He described potential outcomes if the fraud was ignored. It could lead to Margaret's assets being frozen. I ended the phone call and looked at my family directly. "This started because of unauthorized actions," I said firmly. "I won't bend." The meeting went on for another hour. More begging, more pressure. But I didn't budge. That evening, Margaret received official notice of her first court hearing date. Her phone kept pinging with emails from business partners questioning her ethics. One of her biggest clients canceled a major project. They cited the ongoing legal dispute as their reason. Dad's store lost a valuable supplier relationship. The supplier had heard about the case through business channels. Mom mentioned that neighbors were whispering about it at their church. People were unfollowing Margaret on social media. The local business association started reviewing her practices. They were considering suspending her membership. As the lawsuit moved forward, more witnesses came forward. The survey crew submitted written statements confirming Margaret had hired them and given them instructions. The buyer's lawyer pushed for discovery. That meant they could look at Margaret's financial records. This revealed how desperate she had been for money. Margaret tried to settle the case privately several times, but the buyers insisted on public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. They wanted other people to know what she had done. Family friends stopped inviting my parents to social events. People were nervous about being associated with the scandal. Dad's store had fewer customers. Some people were avoiding it because of the family name. Mom stopped going to her volunteer activities. She was too embarrassed by the gossip around town. Paul had been applying for jobs. Several opportunities disappeared when background checks revealed his connection to Margaret. Margaret was drowning in legal bills. Her own lawyer charged thousands of dollars. She had to dip into her savings account. Then she had to sell things to pay for her defense. The court ruled on some preliminary motions. The judge sided with the buyers on key points. This meant Margaret's case was getting weaker. Local newspapers picked up the story. They wrote articles about it as a warning tale for the business community. Headlines read, "Local business owner faces fraud charges." Margaret's professional license came under review. State regulators scheduled formal hearings. Banks that had given her credit cards started demanding payment immediately. This added even more financial pressure. Her creditors changed the terms of her existing loans, making them harder to pay. The whole family's reputation in town was damaged. People they had known for decades were treating them differently. 3 months after the case started, the judge made a final decision. Margaret lost on every single point. The ruling stated clearly that she had deliberately lied about the property's status. She had to pay the buyers back every penny they had spent, plus interest. The total was over $200,000. The court also added fines for breaking state real estate rules. This drained Margaret's bank accounts completely. She tried to appeal, but her lawyer said the chances of winning were almost zero. The evidence against her was too strong. Margaret had to sell almost everything she owned. She sold her car. She moved out of her nice apartment into a tiny, cheap one. The business association revoked her license. She was banned from working in real estate for at least 5 years. Her former colleagues stopped answering her phone calls. When she applied for regular jobs, nobody would hire her. Word had spread too far. One of the buyers wrote a detailed review on business websites. They didn't use Margaret's name directly, but they left enough clues. People in the industry figured out who it was about. Margaret's social circle vanished overnight. Invitations to events stopped coming. She spent her evenings alone scrolling through social media, looking at people who used to be her friends. They had all distanced themselves from her. Dad's store suffered major consequences. His longtime business partners became hesitant about working with him. One large contract fell apart. The client specifically mentioned the legal case in their cancellation letter. Dad's revenue dropped by 30% in just 3 months. He had to lay off employees. He couldn't give bonuses that year. Mom's community groups whispered behind her back everywhere she went. She resigned from a charity board to avoid awkward questions. Paul's career completely stalled. Job recruiters pulled their offers after background checks connected him to Margaret. The family that used to be so close now barely spoke to each other. When they did talk, conversations were tense and full of blame. I watched all of this from a distance. I got updates by checking public court records online. I didn't need direct contact. Marcus handled the final witness paperwork. My written statement stood strong. Nobody could challenge it. After the case officially closed, I made a decision. I blocked their phone numbers one by one, first Margaret's, then Dad's, then Mom's, finally Paul's. No more begging phone calls, no more angry messages. I moved to a small rental house near the coast of Alaska. I went deeper into my eagle research without any distractions. On weekends, I went on long hikes along protected shores. I analyzed data about bird migration patterns. Nobody bothered me. My professional network grew. I presented my findings at science conferences around the country. Other researchers respected my work. I was free from family drama pulling me backward. The farm in my home state remained secure, its protection papers intact against any future threats. Conservation groups praised what had happened. They used my case as an example in their training workshops. They taught other people how to protect land from development. I learned an important lesson through all of this. Protecting personal boundaries means saying no without feeling guilty, even to family members, even to people who share your blood. Learning to value the environment taught me resilience. It taught me strength. Sometimes protecting what matters means standing alone. Sometimes the right choice is the hardest choice. Years have passed since that family dinner. I'm an old man now, but I have no regrets. The eagles still nest on my farm every spring. I watch them through my cameras, even from thousands of miles away. Their population has actually grown because the land stayed protected. Scientists cite my farm as a success story. Occasionally, I wonder what happened to Margaret. I heard through distant connections that she works at a grocery store now. She lives in a different state, starting over with a new name. Dad's store eventually closed. He retired early, broken by the financial losses. Mom and Dad moved to a smaller house. They don't talk about those days. Paul moved across the country and changed careers entirely. He works in something unrelated to business. We haven't spoken in years. Sometimes people ask me if I feel bad about what happened. They ask if I miss my family. I tell them the truth. I miss who they could have been. But I don't miss the people they were. The people who valued money more than honesty, more than respect, more than the natural world. My farm stands as a testament to Uncle Thomas's vision. Every spring when the eagles return, I think of him. He knew what mattered. He knew some things are worth protecting at any cost. The birds don't care about human drama. They don't care about lawsuits or fraud or family feuds. They simply soar above it all, free and magnificent. That's the life I chose too. Freedom from toxic relationships. Freedom to follow my purpose. Some people say I was too harsh. They say family should forgive family no matter what. But I ask them this: what about the times family tries to steal from you? What about when family lies and schemes and slaps you across the face? Where's the loyalty then? My sister made her choices. Every step of the way, she chose dishonesty over honesty. She chose greed over respect. She chose to forge ahead with a fraudulent deal even though I said no repeatedly. Those were her choices, not mine. The consequences were her responsibility, not mine. I simply stood firm on the truth. I protected what Uncle Thomas entrusted to me. I protected the birds who have no voice of their own. In doing so, I discovered my own strength. Living alone in Alaska, I found peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you did the right thing. The kind that comes from living in alignment with your values. My days are simple now. I wake up early and watch the sunrise over the mountains. I record bird songs and track their patterns. I write papers that help other conservationists. I mentor young researchers who want to protect wildlife. My evenings are quiet. I cook simple meals. I read books by the fire. I sleep soundly knowing my conscience is clear. This is what victory looks like, not wealth or social status, not family approval or community standing, but inner peace and purpose. The farm remains untouched, a sanctuary for generations to come. That's my legacy. Not money in a bank account, not property developments or business deals, but protected wilderness where eagles soar free. If you're watching this and facing a similar situation, here's my advice. Stand firm in your truth. Don't let family pressure make you compromise your values. Don't let guilt manipulate you into betraying what you know is right. Set boundaries and defend them, even when it hurts, even when everyone turns against you, even when you stand completely alone. Because being alone with integrity beats being surrounded by people who disrespect you. Protect what matters, whether it's land, principles, or your own well-being. Some things are worth fighting for, worth sacrificing relationships for. The path of integrity is often the loneliest path. But it's also the only path where you can look in the mirror without shame. My sister called me a loser. She thought having money and deals made her a winner. But look at how things turned out. She lost everything chasing wealth dishonestly. I kept everything by holding firm to honor. Who's the real loser? Who's the real winner? Sometimes karma works slowly, but it works surely. Justice delayed is not justice denied. My sister's schemes collapsed under the weight of truth. And I simply had to stand back and let it happen. I didn't have to lift a finger for revenge. The law did it for me. The truth did it for me. Her own actions did it for her. That's the beauty of living honestly. You don't have to plot or scheme. You just have to tell the truth and let the chips fall where they may. So to anyone watching, remember this lesson. Quick money isn't worth your integrity. Family approval isn't worth compromising your values. And standing alone is better than standing with people who would exploit you. Before I end this story, I want to share one more thing. About 6 months after the court case ended, I received a letter. It came to my Alaska address. I didn't recognize the handwriting on the envelope. Inside was a single page. It was from Margaret. She didn't apologize. She didn't take responsibility. Instead, she blamed me. She said I had ruined her life. She said I could have helped her but chose cruelty instead. She called me selfish and cold-hearted. She said the family would never forgive me. I read that letter 3 times. Then I walked outside to my fire pit. I struck a match and burned it. Watching the paper curl and blacken felt symbolic. I was burning away the last connection to that toxic chapter. The smoke rose up into the clear Alaskan sky and disappeared. Margaret still doesn't understand what she did wrong. In her mind, she's the victim. She believes I should have sacrificed the farm to save her from her bad decisions. She thinks family means unlimited tolerance for bad behavior, but she's wrong. Family is supposed to be built on mutual respect, on honesty, on supporting each other's dreams, not exploiting them. Real family doesn't slap you and call you a loser. Real family doesn't forge documents and commit fraud. Real family respects boundaries. The blood relation doesn't obligate me to enable her destructive behavior. That letter confirmed I made the right choice cutting contact. Some people never learn. Some people never change. And I'm okay with that. I can't fix her. I can only control my own actions. and my action was to protect something sacred. Today, I'm happier than I've ever been. My research has won awards. I've published books about eagle conservation that schools use for teaching. Young people write to me saying I inspired them to become biologists. Universities invite me to speak. My farm has become a field study site for graduate students. They come each summer to observe and learn. I've built a small cabin on the property where researchers can stay. Everything Uncle Thomas dreamed of has come true. The land he protected is now teaching the next generation. Every eagle that's born there is a victory. Every student who learns there carries forward the mission. This is what matters. This is what lasts. Not money, not status, not family approval, but purpose, impact, legacy. When I die, the farm will go to a conservation trust. It will be protected forever. Long after I'm gone, eagles will still nest there. Students will still learn there. The land will remain wild and free. Margaret will be forgotten. Her schemes will be a footnote, but the eagles will remember. Not literally, of course, but their continued existence will be the memory. Their survival will be the testament. Standing up to my family was the hardest thing I ever did, but it was also the best thing I ever did. It freed me to become who I was meant to be, not a tool for their schemes, not a doormat for their demands, but a guardian, a protector, a conservationist. If I could go back and change anything, I wouldn't. Every difficult moment led to this peace. Every painful choice built this beautiful life. What's the lesson here? What should you take away from my story? First, know your worth, know what matters to you, then protect it fiercely. Second, blood doesn't grant unlimited access to your life. Family members can be toxic, you're allowed to cut them off. Third, document everything. I kept records, I took photos, I saved emails. That evidence saved me. Fourth, find experts you trust. Marcus the lawyer was invaluable. Professional guidance matters. Fifth, stay calm when others panic. My sister's desperation made her sloppy. My calm made me strategic. Sixth, the truth is your greatest weapon. I didn't have to lie or scheme, I just had to stand in truth. Seventh, patience pays off. I let the system work, I didn't try to rush revenge. Eighth, peace is worth more than approval. I chose lonely peace over toxic approval. No regrets. Ninth, legacy matters more than wealth. What will outlive you? What will you leave behind? 10th, nature doesn't judge. Birds don't care about human drama. Finding solace in the natural world healed me. These lessons took 60 years to fully learn, but they're gold. They're wisdom earned through fire. If even one person watching this learns from my mistakes and my triumphs, then sharing this story was worth it. Stand firm, friends. Protect what matters. Cut off toxic people even if they're family. Build a life aligned with your deepest values. The eagles taught me how to soar above the drama. Now I'm teaching you. Will you listen? Will you apply these lessons? Or will you stay trapped in toxic family dynamics? The choice is yours, but I'll tell you this, freedom tastes sweeter than any family approval. Purpose feels better than any amount of money, and integrity lasts longer than any relationship built on manipulation. My sister is somewhere right now, probably still blaming me, probably still playing the victim, probably still refusing to look in the mirror and take responsibility. And you know what? That's her burden to carry, not mine. I put down that burden years ago. I walked away from it. I chose lightness over heaviness. I chose truth over comfort. I chose EAGLES over family drama, and I would make that choice again 1,000 times. So to wrap this up, my sister tried to steal my farm. She slapped me and called me a loser. She committed fraud and faced justice. And when she called begging for help, I said 3 simple words. Too late, loser. Those words ended one chapter and began another. They closed the door on toxicity and opened the window to freedom. They severed toxic ties and created space for authentic living. Today, I live surrounded by mountains and eagles. I live with purpose and peace. I live knowing I honored Uncle Thomas's trust. I live knowing I protected something precious. And that makes me a winner. Not money, not status, not family approval, but this quiet, powerful knowledge that I did the right thing, no matter the cost. So I'll ask you one final time, what would you have done? Would you have caved to family pressure? Or would you have stood firm like I did? Drop your answer in the comments, because your response reveals a lot about your character. And let me tell you something else. The hardest part wasn't the court case. It wasn't blocking their numbers. It wasn't even standing alone. The hardest part was the quiet moments. The moments when I questioned myself, late at night, lying in bed, wondering if I was being too harsh, wondering if I should have shown mercy, wondering if blood really should be thicker than water. Those moments of doubt were brutal, but you know what got me through them? I would think about Uncle Thomas. I would remember his weathered hands pointing at eagle nests. I would remember his voice saying, "Harold, some things are bigger than us. Some things we must protect for those who come after." I would think about the eagles themselves, magnificent creatures that almost went extinct because of human greed, because people valued development over preservation, because short-term profit mattered more than long-term survival. And I realized I wasn't just protecting a farm, I was protecting a principle. The principle that some things are sacred, the principle that not everything is for sale, the principle that we have a responsibility to nature. Margaret never understood that. To her, the farm was just real estate, just dollar signs, just an opportunity for profit. But to me, it was holy ground. It was Uncle Thomas's legacy. It was a sanctuary for creatures who have no voice in our human courts. How could I sell that for her convenience? How could I mortgage that for her mistakes? The answer was simple. I couldn't, not without betraying everything I believed in, not without disrespecting Uncle Thomas's memory, not without condemning those eagles to homelessness. So when people ask if I have regrets, I think about those eagles. I think about the graduate students who study there now. I think about the children who visit on school field trips and see wildlife up close for the first time. I think about their faces lighting up when they spot an eagle soaring overhead. That is what I protected. That is what I chose over family approval. And given the choice again, I would choose it every single time. Because money runs out, buildings crumble, businesses fail. Nature endures, values endure, integrity endures. My sister lost everything trying to gain everything dishonestly. I kept everything by standing firm honestly. The universe has a funny way of balancing the scales. You can't cheat your way to lasting success. You can't lie your way to genuine peace. You can't steal your way to authentic happiness. Margaret learned that the hard way. And maybe, somewhere deep down, that was the greatest gift I could give her. Not enabling her, not rescuing her, but letting her face the full consequences of her actions. Because only through consequences do we truly learn. Only through hitting rock bottom do we potentially change. I don't know if she ever changed. I don't know if she ever looked in the mirror and accepted responsibility. But that's not my concern anymore. I gave her the gift of natural consequences. What she does with that gift is up to her. As for me, I'm at peace, I'm fulfilled, I'm living with purpose. And friends, that is what winning truly looks like. So here's my final message to you, and I want you to really hear this. Your boundaries matter. Your values matter. Your integrity matters more than any relationship. If protecting what's right means standing alone, then stand alone. The right company will find you eventually. People of character recognize character. While I cut off toxic family, I gained a community of fellow conservationists. I gained friendships with researchers who share my passion. I gained respect from people who matter. I traded quantity for quality, surface relationships for deep connections, obligation for choice, and life became so much richer. So don't be afraid to walk away from toxicity, even when it wears the mask of family. Don't be afraid to say no, even when everyone pressures you to say yes. Don't be afraid to protect what matters, even when it costs you everything familiar. Because on the other side of that fear is freedom. On the other side of that sacrifice is peace. On the other side of that loneliness is authentic connection. I'm Harold Bennett. I'm 60 years old. I chose eagles over family. I chose integrity over approval. I chose purpose over comfort. And I'm living proof that the right choice isn't always the easy choice, but it's always worth it. Thank you for listening to this old man's story. Now go out there and protect what matters in your life. Stand firm. Stay strong. And remember, sometimes the greatest victory is simply refusing to compromise who you are. That's all from Granny's voice. Until next time, stay true to yourself. Always.